My sister told everyone I stole Mom's will. She forgot one security camera. The funeral changed everything. The first person who looked at me differently was my uncle. Not my sister, not the lawyer. My uncle. He took one step back when I walked into the funeral home, like he wasn't sure he wanted to stand next to me anymore. I didn't understand why. Mom had been gone for less than 48 hours. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. I was still wearing the same black flats I'd worn at the hospital because I hadn't had the energy to think about shoes. Then my younger sister Rachel walked toward me. Her eyes were red from crying, or at least they looked that way. She hugged me for exactly 3 seconds before pulling away and saying, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "I just wish you'd put Mom's will back before people started asking questions." Everything around me went silent. "What?" I whispered. Rachel folded her arms. "The lawyer said Mom kept the original in her bedroom safe. It's gone." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it made absolutely no sense. "I've never even opened Mom's safe." Rachel shrugged. "You were the last person alone in the house." That wasn't true. At least I didn't think it was. But before I could answer, I noticed people watching us. My cousins, my aunt, even the pastor. Nobody accused me. Nobody defended me either. They simply looked at me the way people look at someone they suddenly aren't sure they know. I felt sick. Mom had spent 32 years teaching elementary school. She believed honesty mattered more than almost anything. And now, before we had even buried her, someone had convinced half the family that I had stolen the one thing Mom could no longer speak for. I had no idea that Rachel had forgotten about one small camera mounted above Mom's front porch, and by the time anyone remembered it, everything they believed about that afternoon would change. The funeral ended just after 2 p.m. People hugged me. They offered condolences, but something had changed. The hugs felt shorter. The conversations stopped when I walked closer. I had known these people my entire life, yet somehow, in less than 24 hours, I had become the woman who might steal from her own dead mother. Rachel never accused me directly again. She didn't have to. Every time someone asked about the missing will, she'd sigh and say, "I just hope it turns up." She was letting everyone reach the conclusion on their own. It was smarter that way. The next morning, Mom's attorney, Mr. Collins, called. "We still haven't found the original," he said. "Without it, we'll have to use the most recent copy on file." "Is there a problem with that?" I asked. There was a long pause. "The copy leaves everything equally to both of you." I frowned. "So, why does the original matter?" Another pause. "Your sister insists your mother changed it 3 weeks ago." My stomach dropped. Changed it how? "According to Rachel, your mother planned to leave the house entirely to her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom loved us differently maybe, but never unequally. She would never have done that without telling me. I drove straight to Mom's house. For the first time since the funeral, I walked through every room slowly. Her reading glasses were still on the kitchen table. Her favorite sweater still hung behind the pantry door. Everything looked exactly the same, except one thing. The small safe in her bedroom was wide open, empty. As I stood there trying to make sense of it, my neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, walked across the yard and knocked gently on the open front door. "I didn't want to interrupt yesterday," she said quietly, "but the police asked if anyone had security cameras." I looked at her. She pointed toward the front porch. "You know your mother installed one last Christmas." Then she smiled sadly. "I don't think your sister remembered that. I called the security company before I called my sister. The footage was stored in the cloud for 30 days. Mom had died only 4 days earlier. It was still there. An hour later, I was sitting beside Detective Harris in a small interview room at the police station, watching the video on a monitor. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The mail carrier, Mrs. Alvarez walking her dog, me arriving Tuesday afternoon with groceries. I stayed for 43 minutes. We watched myself leave carrying nothing except my purse. Then Wednesday's footage started. At 8:16 a.m., Rachel's SUV pulled into Mom's driveway. I frowned. She had told everyone she hadn't visited Mom's house that morning. The timestamp didn't lie. Rachel unlocked the front door with her spare key and walked inside carrying an empty canvas tote. She stayed for 17 minutes. When she came back outside, the tote wasn't flat anymore. It was full. Detective Harris paused the video. "Would you like to keep watching?" I nodded. Rachel looked around before closing the front door. Not casually, carefully, like she wanted to make sure nobody had seen her. She placed the tote on the passenger seat, drove away, and never came back. I couldn't speak. The detective rewound the footage and played it again. Same time, same bag, same glance over her shoulder. Then he opened another clip from Thursday morning, the day of Mom's funeral. Rachel arrived again. This time, she walked straight to the porch, stood on her tiptoes, reached above the front door, and twisted something with both hands. The video froze. Detective Harris zoomed in. Rachel was pointing directly at the security camera. She had tried to turn it away from the driveway. She just didn't realize the camera had already uploaded everything to the cloud before she touched it. I felt my hands start shaking, not because I finally knew who had taken the will, because I suddenly understood something much worse. Rachel hadn't panicked after Mom died. She had made a plan. And judging by the smile on her face as she walked back to her SUV that morning, she believed it was a plan no one would ever be able to prove. The room went quiet after the last clip ended. The screen was still glowing, frozen on Rachel's face as she reached up toward the camera. Detective Harris didn't speak right away. He just leaned back in his chair and studied me, like he was waiting for my reaction to turn into something more useful than shock. I couldn't move at first. It wasn't just that Rachel had taken the will, it was the way she had done it. Calculated, calm, like she had already rehearsed how it would look when someone finally watched it back. "She knew," I said finally, my voice barely coming out. "She knew the camera was there." The detective nodded slightly, or she assumed it wasn't recording. "But it was already uploaded," I added. "Exactly." He closed the laptop halfway but didn't shut it, like he wanted me to remember the image of her hand hand reaching up forever. I stared at the table. My whole family thinks I did this, I said. Right now, he replied. Your family thinks what they were told. That hit harder than I expected, because it wasn't just about Rachel anymore. It was about how quickly everyone accepted the story. No questions, no hesitation, just belief, built on convenience. The detective slid a printed still image across the table. It was Rachel inside the house, standing near the safe. The timestamp matched the morning Mom died. She was inside long enough to take something, he said, and she came back again later to adjust the camera angle. I looked at the photo for a long time. She didn't just steal the will, I said quietly. She framed me for it. Harris didn't answer. Instead, he said something that made my stomach drop even further. We still haven't recovered the missing documents? A pause. And if she destroyed them, we need to figure out why your mother changed her will in the first place. The question stayed in the room longer than anything else. Why would your mother change her will? Detective Harris said it like it was a simple legal detail, but to me it felt like someone had just opened another door behind the one we were already standing in. I leaned forward slightly. She wouldn't change it, I said, not without telling me. The detective didn't react. He'd probably heard that line too many times from people who were wrong. He slid another page toward me, a copy of Mom's older will, the one everyone agreed existed. Everything split equally between Rachel and me. Then explain this, he said. I scanned it again like I had missed something the first time. Nothing changed, nothing strange, just my mother's handwriting, her lawyer's stamp, and her signature. But now there was a shadow over it. The idea that another version existed, one I had never seen. I don't know what Rachel told you, I said, but Mom wasn't secretive like that. If she changed something, she would have told me. Or your sister got to her first, he replied. That sentence landed hard. I looked up immediately. You think Rachel influenced her? I think your sister had access, he said carefully, and timing that matters. A silence stretched between us. Outside the room, I could hear faint voices, a phone ringing, life continuing like nothing had shattered, but mine had. I thought about Mom in her last weeks, tired but still sharp, still aware. She wouldn't have made a decision like this lightly, and she definitely wouldn't have done it in silence, unless she hadn't done it at all. Unless someone had created the story after the fact. My hands curled into fists under the table. Show me everything you have, I said. The detective nodded once like he was expecting that request, and when he opened the next file, I saw something that made my breath catch. A second angle of the same house footage, but this one wasn't from the porch camera. It was from inside. Rachel's case didn't go to trial the way my family expected. The moment the second footage was confirmed, everything changed direction. What was once a family argument turned into a full investigation. Detective Harris called it clear intent. The lawyers called it document fraud and obstruction. My relatives called it something else entirely. Silence. No one defended her anymore. Not even the uncle who had stepped away from me at the funeral. Because when the truth is shown that clearly, there's nothing left to interpret. Rachel didn't come back to the house again. She didn't call me. She didn't explain anything. But one evening, I received a short message from an unknown number. Just 4 words. You were never supposed to know. I stared at it for a long time. Not angry. Not even shocked anymore. Just tired. Because the real damage wasn't just the stolen will. It was the fact that in less than 2 days, my entire family had decided I was guilty. And lived with that belief without question. And even after the truth came out, something didn't fully go back to normal. It never does. The house felt emptier now, even though justice had been done. Mom's things were still there. Her sweater, her glasses, her quiet life frozen in objects. But trust? That didn't come back with the will. It stayed broken. And as I walked out of the station that night, I realized something simple. Sometimes the worst betrayal isn't what someone takes from you. It's what everyone believes about you while you're still standing there innocent.